If you're looking for the stars of the future, you're looking in the right place. It's time for Race 1 for the Skip Barber Race Series here at NOLA Motorsports Park. I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Joey, this is a beautiful morning to go racing.
It is bright and early here at NOLA, 8 a.m. on the dot, and these cars are rolling out of pit lane. Very excited to get race number 1 accomplished here for the Skip Barber Racing Series. And yeah, I can't wait to see what we have here. About 10 cars lined up, and these cars have been making some noise all weekend long, and now it's race time.
Indeed, you can see them just trying to get the tires up to temperature, as it is a little bit cool out here, but should be able to get them up to speed quickly. As you can see, we've got our timing tower up, so let's go through our starting order. And it's going to be Ethan Booher starting on the pole in the number 16 today. And then you've got Chris Spada starting next to him on the outside of the front row. Third will be, it's going to be Ethan Booher, or no, Alan Orzynski starting from third. Ethan Booher going to be starting from P4. Trevor LaTourette is starting in the 5th position. Then you've got Naeem Say, and then Jason Gajero and Logan Anderson rounding out your field here, Joey. What do you think is going to be some of the critical things for these drivers to keep in mind today?
I think keeping the car clean, number 1, right? You always want to exit the race with the same piece that you entered the race with. So obviously, rule number 1, don't go smashing into your competitors out there, but you also want to prove yourself in your racecraft, in your speed. Remember, this is a feeder series, so it's all about honing your driving, really perfecting that racecraft out there. So I'm looking towards those brake zones. Who's aggressive on the brakes through this high-speed section? Who's good with the high-speed aerodynamic platform and managing that car around some of these really fast corners? And then also keeping the car within those track limits. Remember, they can only go 2 wheels on those red and white painted curbs. 4 wheels is a no-no.
Exactly, and these drivers just kind of cutting their teeth out here as you see them getting lined up 2 by 2. These are the drivers that are hopeful to move up to various open wheelers, maybe down the line, maybe get into some tin tops at some point. But for now, they're just getting started with their careers, and we'll see who is quick today as they come around the last few corners. They will be released out of the final turn down to the green flag for this 25-minute race. Let's hope we can stay green all throughout this one, as there goes the pace car. Nice, good rows all throughout the field of these 10 machines. And coming down into the final turn, we look for that call from the flag stand. It is a long ways from there, and they're holding a nice, steady speed. Looks like they're going to give it just a little bit before they send them off, and they're allowed to go as soon as they see that green. It's the start zone off to the right-hand side, driver's right, and is the green now as the car hop out and head down into turn 1. Looks like it is a very good start there for the 30 of Spada, holding that inside line, trying to defend, looking at maybe 3 wide coming down to the first corner. Oh, big lockup on the outside.
I think that was Machado Perez with that little bit of a lockup and a huge wiggle from Allen in the number 12 car. That was the car on the inside there of turn number 1, but thankfully was able to gather it all back up. And I think that might be Ethan Booher trying to make a move up there for the lead in the number 6.
Try to look down to the inside. That does cause Spada to go just a little bit wide down through 3 and 4. That opens up the door, but it's going to be switching back to a right-hander here. Spada will slip back into the lead for the time being, but boy, is he experiencing pressure early.
Yeah, that's that number 30 car, and you see the cars kind of almost defending that inside line already going into what is turn number 6, but now the speed really picks up around this NOLA Motorsports Park circuit. We kind of have a technical sector 1, a technical sector 2, or I'm sorry, a technical sector 3, but the one in the middle here, sector 2, is much faster, and look at that third place car really roll up in the slipstream.
Yeah, I think that is Orzynski back there just sitting in behind him, trying to get a little bit closer, but he's going to have an opportunity to pass coming down into the next corner. Sharp right-hander here to finish up the lap. Look to the inside there from second place, but just can't quite get their big wiggle on the brakes.
Yeah, that's that number 6 car of Ethan Booher. Big wiggle, like you said, and he was the one that was also pretty loose there in, call it the turn 1 complex here on this opening lap, but good for him. He started on the second row, and he's already made his way up into second place.
First lap is down, and we kept it nice and clean. Great to see for these new drivers, but look at them down the main straight. These are momentum cars. The Slipstream, very powerful third, going to take a big look to the outside. Orzynski going to try and see if he can make a move on Booher down into the first corner, but he's going to have to do it around the outside, and he's got it hanging tough through there. That'll give him the inside for turn 2. Nicely done.
Yeah, and that's Machado Perez up into that second place right there in that number 16 car. It can be a little bit difficult to call out those car numbers. Remember, they're placed on those rear wings out there. So if you see the car number, that's how we're relating it to the name. And right now, it's really all been Chris Spada. Remember, our pole sitter got that great jump, was able to defend the lead into turn number 1. And now even Machado Perez finds himself back in that second position, but he had to kind of argue to get there again.
I mean, based on what we've seen at this track so far this weekend, how important do you think having that track position is this at this track, Joey?
I think it's crucial. You know, we were talking to the Skip Barber guys here before the race, and these cars are doing about 200K down the front surface and only 2 wheels on that exit curve. Now, you talk about the bumps. I think out of the final turn is probably one of the bumpiest sections on this racetrack as we see that slipstream effect really going down the front straightaway here, but you got to be careful over those exit curbs.
Orzynski looking to try and snatch it back, and I think he did round the outside, coming down at a 1 and 2. It is a pretty swift right-left on those first 2 corners.
Yeah, and now they're going through, oh, big-time lockup right there, and that's going into turn number 3. And I think that these drivers, they're still understanding the platform, right? This is what being in these formula cars is all about, is that learning experience. And down the front straightaway, you have so much more air going over the front of the car. It's really helping that grip level. And then when you go into some of the slower, more technical speed sections, you don't have that aerodynamic effect. So if you squeeze that brake pedal too hard, you can easily lock up those fronts.
Again, a lot of learning for these drivers out here. They are randomly assigned these cars as well each weekend. So the drivers will have to get adapted to maybe just the minutia that comes with each car that they hop into and adapt to that quickly. As there is Spada still leading the way in that red machine and has a decent gap, but not a full second over Perez, who comes in from winning a sim racing competition on iRacing to get this scholarship.
It was pretty cool. I got to call a couple of some series with even Machado Perez out there and really got to see him excel in the sim racing world, and it's really neat to see him out here also in these Miguel Formula cars, really kind of putting it to everybody. I think that's kind of the whole point of what these sim racers are really asking for, is kind of that sim to reality crossover bridge.
Exactly, and that has been a big talking point. Plenty of these drivers coming in from sim racing experience trying to take that leap, that first step. Spada, definitely one of those as well. Young driver from New Jersey as well, 23 years old and just out of college. Well, let's see if that'll help him around here. So far, so good. Still leading by about a second across the line.
And we talk about this being a feeder series, right? A ladder series. So yes, all these drivers are out here trying to learn, trying to perfect their racecraft. And you think, oh, well, that's going to be passing, that's going to be lap time. But it's also what Chris Spada is doing right now. You have to learn to be out front, learn how to manage the pressure, possibly from faster cars behind, and then also just execute the race. Because if you go out there and you're too aggressive, you can find yourself making mistakes. So even leading out front, you can learn.
Yeah, it definitely is its own skill, being able to really focus on hitting your marks. And so far, been doing excellent out there, but Perez is climbing up the order. Going to try and see if he can challenge him. So far, he's been cutting into it bit by bit, but he's got to get there to try to make the move. They are pulling away from third place as well. Orzynski dropping off just by a few more car lengths since we last saw them, down once again into turn 11 and 12 as they weave their way through this slow final sector.
Tell you what, visually, it certainly looked like Spada drove it in really deep into that brake zone of turn 11, kind of had to gather up the car, but it didn't seem to really affect that gap between him and that second place Machado Perez. And You see him already kind of going over the right side of the racetrack, so maybe even Chris Spada realized that he made a little bit mistake, you know, and he's going to kind of go and do a little bit of a serpentine down the front straightaway, break that slipstream. You
were right. It stayed at about 9/10 of a second, so was not able to close in with that error, but Orzynski's now 4 seconds behind them as they cross the line. Meanwhile, it looks like there's a bit of a battle towards the back of the field as well.
Yeah, I think that's Trevor and Jason back there. It might be the number 11, number 19 cars that I see going through what is turn number 2 right now. So it's probably our closest battle on the track other than our lead, right? And that's important too because, like I said, management stuff, right? If Spada can go out there and manage this race, then he's learning from that. And Machado Perez is definitely going to be learning from following that number 30, trying to pick up, okay, where is he a little bit faster? Is it a brake zone? Is it rolling speed? Or do I just need to be a little bit more aggressive myself?
Well, and you talk about learning different aspects of racing, even if they are racing for last on the track. Getting to develop that wheel-to-wheel skills, racecraft, I feel like going to be so important for these young drivers.
When you talk about racing, it doesn't matter what level of competition, racecraft is number one, right? If you can't race wheel-to-wheel with somebody, you're only going to be going as far as qualifying or time trials, right? So you need to be comfortable going side by side with your competitors, just like kind of we see here, I believe this Naeem, Trevor, and Jason, this little 3-pack down the back straightaway.
It is indeed coming down to the braking of turn 11 once again. Naeem still stuck in the middle of the group as the 19 of Jason gets very close to the back of him down through 12. Let's see what kind of run he can get down the main straight. We took off yet another lap, 16 minutes left to go. Decent exit, but is he close enough?
I love seeing that these drivers are keeping it in the limits out there. Another important part about learning how to race is keep and carry your car. If you go out and abuse your car up over these curbs, it looks like Trevor's going to take a look down into turn 1 on Naeem. Shows the nose, but it is promptly closed by that number 9 car. He took it really deep into that brake zone.
And unfortunately did not pay off this time. Once again, down to the braking of 3 and into 4. You can see how much slower it is here as he goes a little bit wide. Trevor finding himself now under threat. Jason looking for a move, maybe try to cut back underneath him through turn 5, but no, that 11 is there at the apex to halt his momentum.
Let's see what kind of momentum, though, he can carry into turn number 6. Just a little bit of a lift off of the gas there, and you see him really all accordion compress up, and now there's a run. There's a huge look down the inside from Trevor. Looks like he's going to get the position, but watch out for Jason. That was a big block down the inside.
Ooh, gutsy stuff, and Jason at least gets one spot out of it. Naeem, unfortunately, falling down 2 spots now and slipping backwards. So as they work their way through the S's, we have a complete shift. That's not a place I think I've seen any of the other series have passes so far this weekend.
No, it just seemed like the number 9 car, that red car, who's now kind of the caboose on the train, maybe got out a little bit wide out there and kind of on those alligator rumble strips. And look at how close these two are. The number 11 almost getting pushed out there from what is Jason right behind him. Got that nose all the way up to that gearbox on the back of these cars. And now that slipstream effect is going to be pretty big down this front straightaway here, where he's just going to try to sit there. And remember, last time down here, he poked the nose down into turn number 1, but it certainly seems like Trevor's got some good top-end speed.
Jason hailing from Southern California, studying civil engineering, actually. Interesting. Not one that you see as much. Mechanical engineering, probably one that you see more commonly for racers trying to get a little bit of that knowledge that can help them out. But still, it's all math out there, right? So I'm sure he's figuring his way around this car.
Math on the fly, I guess. Opening up the radius, taking, call it the best angles through all these corners. Yeah, geometry a little bit. Yeah, you're right, Joe. But it's all on the fly, right? And it's decision making. That's what makes a racing car driver, is that you have to make those decisions, and you have to make them right now.
Interesting. As we come back to the leaders, I didn't notice that up at the top of our tower, it's now half a second difference. Remember, it was 9/10 before. So Perez may have closed it in a little bit, but let's see what it looks like when they cross the line this time. We only get our timing updated at the start-finish line for these cars, and as they work through these final few corners, it visually doesn't look closer to me.
I would say it's a little bit closer. Definitely call it about 4 car lengths now. And once again, just both drivers doing an extreme job with those track limits. And you see Spada, who's leading this race, in the go far right, at least down the front half of the straightaway, and then once he realizes that number 16, who's giving chase, just isn't quite close enough to make a move into turn number 1, he goes back onto that racing line to optimize his brake zone.
Now remember, this being a training series, they highly emphasize no car contact out there. So yes, they want them to try and fight for those victories, but they're trying to teach them the basics. So they need to stay out of each other. So this is not third place looking to try and maybe pick up things when it falls apart in front of him, although that could happen. But he could catch up if they start racing wheel to wheel. So he still wants them to start fighting because he needs to make up almost 7 seconds now.
And just visually, while I was watching these two cars, especially going into turn number 3, it seemed like our second place car really was hard on the brake pedal pressure. Could really see the front end of the car really dive down, at least in comparison to the number 30. So that tells me that maybe even it is just a little bit more aggressive in the slow speed stuff, or maybe a little bit more confident on the brake pedal. Remember, it does take a couple laps for these cars to fully warm up, get all the way up to temperature in terms of engine, water, and also tires, brakes out there. They warm up pretty quickly, but sometimes that effect can kind of linger a little bit.
Perez really keeping him honest, making sure to fill those mirrors. This looks a lot closer this time. Now you can tell that he is closed in on the 30 car. Spada is going to have to try and get a great exit coming off the final turn, and it does look pretty good. Perez maybe losing a bit in the final right-hander.
Yeah, it's that double apex final corner, and I saw just the front end really slide on that number 16 car, so he kind of gave up a little bit of front grip right there, and that definitely cost him on the exit. So we see Spada kind of accelerate away. And when we talk about road racing, I mean, it is all about exits. Yeah, we got to be aggressive on the brakes in order to make those passes and be side by side with our competitors. But ultimately, the sooner you are to the gas on the corner exit, the quicker you can run away.
And these Formula cars definitely really emphasize those basics. Yes, they have wings on them, but they don't really offer a whole lot of downforce. It is more about translating that momentum in these machines through the infield section at the start of the lap. Now it starts to open up once again. 10 minutes left on the clock. We are just about 2/3 through this.
Yeah, I was just noticing that, and it's amazing how quick these races go by, and I'm sure that the drivers inside the race cars having an absolute ball of a time out there. And it actually looks like Chris Spada was able to kind of pull out that gap a little bit. Didn't see exactly what happened to that number 16 car, but it went from about, call it 3 car lengths last lap to about 10 car lengths, maybe even more now.
Well, and you and I were talking to this on the way to the track, that series of corners through 6, 7, and 8, it does look like it can be a little bit tricky for some of the cars.
Well, and remember when we were watching that 3-pack battle earlier, I think it was Naeem that got out a little bit wide out there in what was turn 7, turn 8 complex. So I have a feeling that if you get out too wide, not only is it the marbles, but this track has those alligator stepped curbs, and if you have your loaded tires on those alligator curbs, you're definitely not going to get the sideway or the lateral grip that you want, or the forward drive.
The lesson today for Chris Spada is soaking up the pressure, and boy, is he coming away with aces, at least up to this point. 1.3 seconds now. Perez losing 3/4 of a second while they continue to run away from Orzynski. These two, the class of the field today.
Doing a really good job putting their skill on full display out here. About 8.5 minutes remaining, so it should translate out to, call it a handful of laps, maybe a little bit less out there as these cars make their way around this NOLA Motorsports Park circuit. And, you know, the other thing that we haven't really talked about too much is the track. You know, we called it technical in Sector 1 and Sector 3, but this is a very, very flat racetrack that has both slow speed and high speed corners, everything for the driver to learn.
Definitely a good one to select here on the Skip Barber Race Series. I was also kind of watching La Tourette and Cajero, who were still fighting for that 5th position back there. They're within a second of one another, so that hasn't gone away. But Jason going to have to get a little bit closer to Trevor if he hopes to try and make a move. Again, this gap looks even bigger now between Spada and Perez.
I wonder if maybe Chris Spada went out a little bit too aggressive and maybe overheated his tires a little bit and started to make a few mistakes. And I know that me as a driver, sometimes if you drive slower, you actually end up going faster. And what I mean by that is if you're too aggressive, you're going to start to make mistakes. You're going to start to blow through those apex speeds. You're not going to be able to get on the gas when you want to. So sometimes when you actually reel it back a little bit, you get the drive off of the corners. You get the rolling speed through those apexes. And right now, Chris Spada, like you said, starting to pull away.
Look at that gap. Let's see what the number looks like. 1.8 again. He does add to his length over Perez, now up by about a half second more over P2. So pulling away, finding some speed late on in this race with now 7 minutes left to go. So the drivers maybe about 3 more laps before this 25-minute race is over. And let's not forget, Joey, this isn't it after this is done. They've got race 2 later today. Yeah,
it'll be really fun to see all these drivers essentially go back to the trailer. And it's really neat, the coaching sessions they do. So all of the data available for everybody, and basically they're going to go out and pick the fast stuff and show it to everybody. Say, hey, this is where they're faster. This is where you could improve out here. So it really is all one big learning team. And that's what I think is really cool about this Skip Barber Racing School is that, yeah, you're competing against each other, but you're still all working towards the same goal.
Exactly. I do love that that every car has their data available to every driver out there, so you can learn a little something from each little bit and hopefully pick up the perfect lap out there. Chris Spada certainly looking like he is on a fantastic run to a possible victory here today, the way it's starting to play out late in this race. Boy, you can really see the bumps through that turn 11 sequence every time the nose just bouncing around.
Crucially, though, through that turn number 12, it seemed like he was able to kind of hold the front end a little bit more narrow on the racing line. I think that these drivers are taking as much speed through turn number 11. That's the brake zone off of that back straightaway where you're talking about all those bumps there, and then really trying to woe it up for what is turn number 12, that left-hander. So I think if you go too fast in the right, you can easily kind of wash the front end in the left. And once again, it's all learning, right? You got to figure out what's the fastest way.
Booher looked like he gathered about half a second on Orzynski that last lap, so he's closing in bit by bit. He might come out of the race before he can try and make a move. He's about 7.5 now that he has to catch up that right ahead. But as we can see, mistakes around here they wind up costing quite a bit, so that means Alan's going to have to really keep on his line.
Well, and just kind of speaking of the gaps, I know that we've kind of been monitoring this lead battle, and it continues to grow, right? It was 1.5 seconds, now up over 2 seconds. So this number 30 car with Chris Spada behind the wheel has found the groove out there, and sometimes drivers, road racing drivers, they'll call it finding the rhythm, right? And he's obviously found it here at NOLA.
Seems to click with this track. This is down through the S's once again. And the 9 and 10 sequence, certainly a swift set of corners before he looks for his brake marker coming down into turn 11. So far, so good for this number 30. Next time he crosses the line, only going to be 4 minutes left on the clock. It is getting down to the end of it, but boy, I mean, he's managed Perez beautifully. It's now up to 2.1 seconds. I think your thoughts on him getting the tires underneath him is really what has been going on here.
Yeah, and there was a flirt right there with the track limit on that final, but he kept 2 on the red and white and 2 on the track surface. So in my book, that was all good, but that shows me that the driver, yes, they might have reeled it in to kind of figure out how to get around here fast, but they're still obviously pushing the limit.
Trying to find some speed. There's always things that you pick up here at the end, because yes, the racer in you wants to go out and take the victory and take the win, but he still is looking to try and learn, find pace each and every lap around this track. 2.3 seconds now over Perez. Orzynski down to 8.9 seconds behind. Booher has got it under 1 second now.
Yeah, good job from that number 6. And remember what we saw from Ethan very early in the race. Definitely one of the racy cars out there, was making moves down to the inside. Maybe had a little bit of a lockup that cost him some track position or some of that tire warm-up phase. But I think that if you're looking in terms of aggressiveness, Ethan Booher has definitely showed that this race, and he's stuck right on the back of Orzynski. He's done a good job.
He was actually coming into this race leading the points because he swept the weekend at Sebring, but I'm not sure if he'll be leading after this one. Fourth place, not bad, but clearly it's looking like he's got some work to do if he wants to get back up to the front and hold on to that potential title. This is actually his second year racing in the Skip Barber Racing Series.
And once again, Spada does a really, really nice job to keep that front end narrow around that turn number 12, and it shows that he doesn't have the understeer through that final turn either. He's able to get the front end turned nicely, roll on the gas, and accelerate out onto the front straightaway here. Got about 2 minutes remaining, so I'd assume 2 laps left.
That sounds about right to me. Yeah, the pole time was a 43.9 for these drivers, so he's got himself enough space that he could probably get around for one more lap. And it's up to 2.9 seconds over Perez. Pace is continually and consistency faster, but so is Booher over Orzynski.
Yeah, I was just noticing that down the front straightaway that the number 6 car has definitely caught the number 12 car. And part of learning is closing out these races, right? It's not just doing laps in what I call the meat and potatoes section of the race, just kind of getting out there and chugging along, swimming along, but it's also being able to close out the race when your body starts to get tired, the ambient air temperature starts to creep up, your brain has been thinking about brake markers every single lap, every single corner, but you still have got to close it out.
Exactly, and now the question becomes, does Booher, if he gets an opportunity, to try and make that pass with 1 lap to go, essentially, because we're coming close to that white flag once we get Spada around to that start-finish line, and the gap continues to visually grow between himself and even Machado Perez, who's been running an excellent race there in second position. We have to remember that even kind of slipped back at the start, made some great passes to get himself back to P2.
That's true. Yeah, you got to look at the positives on every race. I'm sure that he'll be frustrated following Chris Spada the entire race after making those passes, but you're right. Kind of slipped back a little bit in those opening couple corners, but then used some good racecraft, and now we've got the white flag here from timing and scoring on the start stand. 1 lap to go for the number 30.
Down into turn 1, once again just has to hit all those marks. Now he's got it over 3 seconds over Perez. Just looking beautiful at the end of this race is the number 30 of Chris Spada. Meanwhile, it's back up to 0.7 of a second. Booher may be losing a bit. I wonder if Orzynski got the hurry up when he looked in the mirrors.
Yeah, it's a nice job from that number 12 car to kind of handle the pressure, at least in that last 3/4 of a lap that we see as we get this great shot of our leader, Chris Spada, being chased by Machado Perez, but you can visualize that 3.5 second gap, a little bit wide, honestly, out of what is turn number 4 or 5 complex, but as long as you got the momentum, keep it rolling.
Exactly. Maybe, again, just trying a few different things out there to find some speed at the very end of the race. You could see that car sliding. Yeah, he's pushing it.
Yeah, it was definitely even wide through what was turn number 8, 9 right there, and we've seen some of the bigger, heavier sedans really struggle with the front end grip, so now it goes through turn 9 and then back to the left, which is turn number 10, and yeah, you see that car almost in a 4-wheel slide through some of these high-speed corners, but he looks very comfortable.
Just a couple corners to go. He had to deal with some pressure. He didn't have it all his own way, but he dealt with it beautifully to try and come home with victory in race number 1. With the final couple right-handers out of the last turn, it looks like the 30 is going to come away with a win to open the weekend at NOLA Motorsports. Victory for Chris Spada in the number 30 car.
Nice job from Chris, and I just want to call it out that Ethan and Alan are side-by-side going through what is the final complex of corners. I think they might even be side-by-side coming onto the front straight here. Let's see who's going to cross the line first. It is a drag race to start finish. It's the number 12 car, Alan Orzynski, that's going to take the final spot on the podium.
Pumping his fist as he crossed the line. He had a fight for that one. Booher saw an opportunity, and as close as he was, he just couldn't get it across ahead of him. 1/10 second. Look at that on our timing screen. Very close between them as the last cars now trickle across the line. La Tourette going to be the next one. Not too far ahead of Jake, though.
No, yeah, and remember, this was a really good mid-pack battle earlier in the race, so I'm sure that they're going to go back. You know, it's going to be all smiles, handshakes, hugs after this, and then go back and learn, right? You said race number 2 still coming up today, so all these drivers, they're going to go back and download everything and their video and come back for race number 2 with a new set of skills.
Right, so there is your finish for race 1. Again, we got race 2 later today here with the race series at Motorsports Park. Again, thank you. That's not geek with today. Until next time, clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.